Morning, Friday, August 22nd, 2025. I'm Larissa. My video diary. Yeah. Here we are. Here we are. Get my fat ass out of bed here soon. Oh, I've already gotten up a couple times, but I'm just like sitting here so I can do this. Got stuff I gotta do today. I do. Oh my god. Oh my god. So watching the news. Look at this. Trump's sicking the FBI on his ex-friends. People who are like, no, this guy's a lunatic. People who are like, no, I just can't stand by and watch him destroy our country, the fabric of our country, the constitution of our country. Right? Because that's what he's doing. Yeah. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. I've been watching these videos of victim abuse survivors, abduction survivors, women talking about being held captive. And so when Omar's father died, after his father died, Omar and I separated for 6 months. And during that time, I dated someone. I wasn't fooling around before that. No, not at all. But I dated someone while we were separated, and the guy turned out to be a predator. So I didn't know any of this because I didn't know anything, you know, in the community. I didn't really have any friends in the community. There are people that I had kind of gotten to know a little bit, but as far as like having any kind of history with anyone or knowing, community history, things you don't know if when you weren't born somewhere. And Santa Rosa, like the people that were around my age that were there, Omar and I had been married for a number of years. We both had our college degrees. We owned a home. That was not the demographic of people our age in Santa Rosa. And if you were in our age bracket and owned a house, it was because somebody in your family died and left it to you, right? So people were house poor. And if they had houses. And so if people thought you had anything, they were this is a culture that exists in California because it's not just Santa Rosa that's like that. It's like it's most of the state. So if you're not part of the community, right? If you're not really part of the community, if you're an outsider, then everybody is out to like get whatever you have, right? Oh, it's insidious. It's insidious. So like I didn't know that his family, I didn't know that they were hoarders. I didn't know that they had been served eviction notice. And I didn't know that it was a setup. Um, but he really took advantage, and he was predatorial, and I was terrified of him. And so like watching these videos of these women talk, I was telling Omar, watching these videos of these women talk, so many of them go on and on about like things they did to make to try to make the captor comfortable and think that, you know, like this one woman was talking about the guy that kidnapped her and assaulted her, like before he let her go, told her he had such a nice time with her and that maybe someday he'd come back and get her and take her on a date. Right? Like that's the kind of and I can Like, I was doing everything in my power to try to keep this guy and his family out of my house. Meanwhile, he's saying to me, "Oh, move my family in and we'll make this house a home. You've never lived in a home." Like, and he was assaulting me almost daily and in public. And he had threatened my family. He had threatened to beat the shit out of Omar. And why he thought this was going to impress me, I don't know. All it did for me was let me know the extent of how violent he was. So, like, um, he there was this one evening in particular, I wanted him to leave, and he wouldn't leave, and um, he was sexually assaulting me. Um, and he was saying to me, because I, he refused to wear a condom. I'm like, I don't want to. If you don't wear a condom, he refused to wear a condom. He kept at it anyway. I didn't want to, but at all. But like this is my way of telling him no, and he refused to wear. He refused to, and um, it's like Omar's stuff was still in the closet, right? Like, yeah. Anyway, he had me pinned down, and I could smell Omar's clothes in the closet. I could smell him. Hi, buddy. You gonna come up here? Hey, sir. Hey, sir. Hey, hey. Thank you. Why don't you come around and come on up? Come on. Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your kisses. And I had my wedding ring in a dish that was on next to the bed. Oh. Anyway, he had me pinned down on the bed, and I could smell Omar really strongly. And I said, "Oh, what would you do if Omar decided to come home right now?" And he's like, "Oh, well." He's like, "I'd take these," and he like let go of me for a minute, but he had his knees like I was pinned down by his knees too. And he said, "I'd take these," and he like smacks his arms, and he had this fat belly and these weaselly little arms in comparison to his fat body. And he's like, I I'd throw him down, and I just keep hitting him. I'm like, "Oh, really?" I said, "Then what would you do?" He said, "I beat him until he was bloody." This is what he's saying to me. And I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, this is sexy." Right? And then I said to him, I said, "So are you saying that you want to marry me?" And he's like, "Oh, no, no, no." He's like, he said, "If I marry you, then you won't be able to get alimony from him." And he says, "And we'll need that to help pay for the house." Yeah. I was terrified. And the next morning, um, he's like, "Oh, I gotta go back and get some stuff." And I'm like, "Okay." So he left, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed and looking at my ring, and that was when he had dug one of the diamonds out of the ring. They weren't big, they were little. Yeah. That was close to the end of that, like, to the point where the time the end of the summer when then the animal blood got dumped all over my house. That was then he had told me earlier that day. He had told me earlier that day about the guns he had stashed in his mother's garage. He had said he said that he had these. He said, "Oh, I have two." He said, "I have two handguns." He said, "When I lived in Texas, I used to have more." He said, "But after he got arrested down there for assault, and and he had fake teeth, like he had because he got in a fight and got all of his teeth beat out of his face. Like I didn't know. This is when I found out about all this, when he was telling me about this, because he was telling me how they were still in boxes, but he knew exactly where they were. And he said he showed up, um, his second ex-wife, that she had paid to have all of his stuff packed up and put into a U-Haul, and had it all out in front of the house and had the locks changed on the house, and that's how she put him out. And then her entire family got a restraining order against him. Yeah. And so he said he drove back to his mother's house, and that, some of the stuff that was in her house, the furniture and stuff, was his furniture. But then the rest of his stuff was still in boxes, packed in the garage, including these two guns that he said he had. I never saw them, but that's what he told me. Yeah, disgusting. He walks free. He walks free. Hmm. And he threatened my family when um when he understood, like, when I moved to Oakland with Omar, and he was calling me every day, multiple times a day, like over and over and over again, telling me he knew where I was, that he could be up there, he could leave any minute, come up there and be up there, um, telling me I needed to come back. Um, ugh, he even briefly moved out of his mother's house and got a job, and briefly, like, magically got a job and moved out of his mother's house and had an apartment. Yeah. Oh, God. Here comes the tea. Here comes the tea, Brody.
Brody, tea time. Brody wants tea.
Brody says, don't touch mommy. Brody says, nobody's allowed to touch mommy except Brody. Hey. Oh, yeah, he's just punching you. He says, stay away. He says, stay away. I'm going to punch you in the face. Growly, snarly. Are you being growly, snarly? Oh, mommy gets all the kisses. He says, stay away. Look, I'm getting hugs, Brody. I'm getting hugs.
Brody, you are ridiculous.
Oh, he is ridiculous. Ridiculous. So yeah, like when I watch these videos of these women talking about, you know, being abducted, held hostage, abused, raped, like the things that they say, I'm just like, yep, yeah. And my shitty family, my father says, oh, you're just playing victim. Okay. These videos that I see of these women, most of them, the guys get caught, and that's like, oh, now he's in jail, or blah, 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 blah. No, not in my case. And in most cases, they don't get locked up, right? In most cases, they don't. Especially out here in California. Yeah, no. Indigenous guys run rampant doing that kind of shit out here in California, and they get away with it because then they cry, prejudice, right? Yeah. And that, so many girls in that detention center. I'd say 2/3 of the girls that I worked with, no, say half of the girls that I worked with were undocumented. They were here illegally. And then a little more than a quarter of them were from the reservations. And then there was like one or two that weren't, Yeah. But the majority of them were undocumented girls and res girls. Yeah. And all of the res girls had been brutally assaulted by men and boys. Yeah. And very few of those men and boys that they talked about were on the inside. They were still on the outside. Oh no. That's the way it goes. It's disgusting. It really is. It's gross. It's really, really gross. And that's why when Omar and I did the FOSTA-DOP course that you have to take before they'll even consider you in the FOSTA-DOP program here in California, that was ultimately why I said, no, I don't want to do this. Because I didn't want those families to have access to my house, to my home, to my family, to my resources. Right? Yeah. Because they said that if you have, first of all, they said that they will keep a one dropper in the FOSTA-DOP system in the juvenile facility over placing them in a home if they can't find a home that is another indigenous home. But then there's a time limit on that. So if they're in the system like that for so long, then they become eligible for placement in a non-indigenous and in a non-one drop home. Oh yes, this is the racism of the system. But then after that, if there's somebody in the family who is deemed safe, you as the FOSTA-DOP family must allow that person in their lives. meaning that you have to let them come in your home, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't want it after what I had seen and learned working with those girls. I'm like, no, I don't want those people in my home. I was like, if I am taking on the responsibility, financial and everything else, then they've lost they should lose that right? So that was part of it. That was part of why we said no to the foster adopt system here in California. And then the other part was like, even it doesn't matter how old the child is, even if you get a baby or a toddler, the state comes in and has to go through all, they were explaining it. They'll go through all your drawers and your closets and everything, and they'll tell you what things need to be locked up or what things you can't have. And they're like, some of these kids have problems and you don't know, and blah blah blah. I'm like, you with babies? And I said I make art. I have a lot of art supplies. And they're like, oh well, there's probably some things that you won't be able to have. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no, nobody's gonna come in my house and tell me what I can and can't have in my art studio. That's not gonna happen. That's what I said. I said, no, that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen, and I'm not going to let gangbanger families in my house either, you know, into my family in that way. Yeah. No. No. Slimy. Slimy and dirty. Slimy and dirty. You know. So last night for dinner, I did a pasta bake, and it was really good. And oh my gosh, it was so good. Smoked Gouda cheese is so good. Smoked Gouda and Monterey Jack. That's what I shredded up, and then like a big old package of spinach and chopped that up, and I grated an onion and put that in, and smashed up a whole bunch of mess of garlic, and um, chopped up some tomatoes and tossed it all together with the par boiled noodles, and then I baked it. That's it. I didn't put any milk or any other shit in it. I just that stuff, and I baked it. And the water came out of the tomatoes and the onion and the spinach, and finished cooking the pasta, and it was really really good, and it didn't have all the extra milk and butter and all that shit in it. And then the night before that, I did this eggplant dish that I learned from Omar's dad. Yeah, so it's kind of like it's an Egyptian eggplant thing. Yeah, so I had this eggplant and chopped it up and sauteed it in olive oil with coriander. And then you add the garlic and salt and um, tomato, like a can of crushed tomato, and I used fenugreek and oregano. And you add lemon juice, lots of lemon juice, and you stew it. It's like stewed eggplant, and then you finish it with cilantro and parsley. So we had that with rice and halloumi cheese and a cucumber, tomato, herb salad. That was really good. It was really good. Oh, I also put peas in the pasta last night, so that's what made the protein. Peas with the noodles. hmm So today will be clean out the fridge day, because I also made white bean barley soup earlier this week. So there's a little bit of that left, and then there's a little bit of the rice and the eggplant left, and then there's pasta left. So, and because I think Omar finished, I made some coleslaw for him to have with his pastrami, and I think he ate all of that. I think that's all been eaten, all that coleslaw. Made some t-shirts yesterday. Finished making some new t-shirts yesterday, and doing some editing work and other stuff. So that's all good. That's all good. And I've finished my tea here. I showered and dressed and get moving for the day. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah.